Oh, Mr. Harang, would you please do roll call?
Councilmember Gustafson-Palmer,
Here.
Councilmember Moreno,
Present.
Councilmember Giarrusso,
Here.
Councilmember Brosette,
Present.
Councilmember Nguyen.
Present.
We have all members and a quorum.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, so the COVID-19 pandemic continues to preclude us from meeting safely in our council chambers. We must therefore continue to operate in this virtual fashion using the public comment guidelines outlined by the Louisiana Attorney General. Here are the public comment rules that we will follow today. At the beginning of the meeting, staff will read the agenda for today's meeting in its entirety. That agenda is also online at council.nola.gov. We will then recess for 15 minutes to allow citizens to submit written comments for any agenda item. Anyone wishing to comment should go to council.nola.gov and fill out an online public comment form. Only written public comments will be accepted. Public comment will be limited to 1 comment per person per item. Comments should also be limited to 2 minutes when read aloud and be germane to the agenda item at hand. Public comment will be closed at the end of the 15-minute public comment period. No written comments will be accepted beyond that point. Before voting on an agenda item, council staff will read any public comment received for a pending agenda item. So, Mr. Carter, would you please read, again, Mr. Rang, please read the agenda items in full.
The agenda for the January 21st, 2021 Governmental Affairs Committee meeting is as follows. Roll call, recess to receive public comment, approval of the minutes from the January 5th, 2020 meeting, appointments, Audubon Commission, Gail Benson, Downtown Development District, Damon Burns, French Quarter Management District, Heidi Redmond Rains, Historic District Landmarks Commission, Ann Red and Jennifer Green, New Orleans Public Library Board, Dana Henry. I believe this item will be deferred. And then we have to suspend the rules to add the appointment of Leon Richard to the Industrial Development Board.
Should we do this now or at the end of reading the agenda?
We can do it now.
Paul, I think that's incorrect. I think Leon is supposed to be appointed to the renaming commission.
All right. The motion that I have has him going to the IDB.
No, that's incorrect.
All right. Well, we can do a verbal motion.
Yeah.
So all right. So I apologize. So we need to suspend the rules to add the appointment of Leon Richard to the.
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. Can we hold on for 1 second? There's some confusion.
And council member, the questionnaire is also for IDB too. So both the motion and the questionnaire say IDB.
Yeah.
Okay. Councilmember Nguyen, would you like a couple minutes to figure that out?
Yes, thank you. I'll do that during our recess time.
Well, we would then have to take a multiple recess time if we do suspend.
Okay.
So I tell you what, why don't we wait?
We'll just go ahead and hold this off until 2 weeks from now.
You sure?
Yep. Yeah, because
Okay.
we're gonna have to correct the form and everything, and it's not gonna happen in 5 minutes.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. We're going to do a special GA committee anyway, so maybe this is all happening for a reason.
Thank you. No problem at all. Sorry about that.
No worries. It happens. All right. Let's continue with the agenda, please. We're not going to suspend the rules to receive that one.
Great. The last appointment is for the New Orleans Redevelopment Authority, and that's Sadat Spencer. Item number 5 is on the 2020 tree preservation study presented by the City Planning Commission. Item number 6, ongoing efforts to preserve trees and promote green infrastructure in the city of New Orleans. Presentation by Connie Udo, Executive Director of the NOLA Tree Project. Presentation by Jessica Dandridge, Executive Director of the Water Collaborative. And a presentation by Susanna Burley, Executive Director of SOUL, Sustaining Our Urban Landscape. Item number 7 is resolution number R2117, a resolution calling for city action to preserve and grow the city's tree canopy. The last item is other matters.
Great. Thank you so much. So we are going to recess for 15 minutes. I would like the public to know, however, that if we've received any public comment cards for agenda item number, letter E, that would be Dana Henry's appointment. We're going not to say those out because we're not going to take that up on the agenda. However, I would just like the public to know that all of those public comment cards have been received and are being circulated amongst the entire committee. And so we do appreciate you and we appreciate everybody's comments. So with that, we are going to recess for 15 minutes. And so, Paul, what does that put us at for timing? So everybody knows?
1:21 p.m.
Okay, so we will reconvene at 1:21 p.m. Thank you.
Okay, these fucking assholes. Adam makes me read these comments and I get so angry. The Italian,
Andrew, please mute the computer.
talking about street renaming being under HDLC.
council members, do you mind if we take another 5 minutes? We're still going through some of the public comments, and we want to make sure that any public comment that revolves around our appointments is heard before we vote on the appointments. So I would like to have another 5 minutes, if that's okay.
And Councilmember, I just want to clarify for the public comment period has ended. So we're
Okay,
finished
public comment
accepting.
period has ended, so if we could please have 5 minutes then of kind of getting it all straight, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. I'm sorry, I was on mute. Council members, are we ready to come back in? Council members? I think we're ready to call back in. Councilmember Nguyen,
Here.
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 Present.
great. Thank you so much, council members. Thank you for your patience. With that, we would like to go to the agenda. Item number 3, approval of the minutes from the January 5th, 2020 meeting. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Nguyen, seconded by, was that Councilmember Girousso?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Now we will go on to appointments. Mr. Carter, are you doing this or is Paul doing this? Okay, let's go. Oh, yes, we're going to start with the public comment regarding the appointments. So Andrew Sullivan will come on.
Okay, first comment is by Philip Cancelleri, not a paid representative. My comments are regarding the awareness of the nominees to the commissions as to the mission statements and future business of those commissions. The council should be appointing people who are versed in the mission of the Historic District Landmarks Commission and are ready to comment on the motions of the City Council regarding historic streets and parks as to that mission. The role of Historic District Landmarks Commission per the city charter is to preserve and enhance the quality of neighborhoods, strengthening the city's economic base, stimulating the tourist industry, improving property values, fostering economic development, and encouraging growth. The legal name for the street around the circular land near the World War II Museum since 1810 is Tivoli Circle and should be preserved as Tivoli Circle. Many Italian immigrants began their new lives and dreams in New Orleans. They strive to make their mark in this community and been successful, as you can see the Italian influence throughout New Orleans and the state of Louisiana. The generations that have followed were able to build and continue to build on this foundation, and what better way to honor them, us, and future generations to keep the Tivoli Circle as it is. It has been proposed to honor veterans inside Tivoli Circle, which is near the World War II Museum. This would stimulate the tourist industry by adding another reason for people to visit the World War II Museum. Philip Cancelleri, President, American Italian Renaissance Foundation. Next comment is from Lisa Ingram, not a paid representative. The Elenian Club is an over 85-year representation of Italian immigrant families. These immigrant families were instrumental to New Orleans' life beginning in the late 1800s, vital for the city regional growth, and the club continues today. Italians were notable for vegetable fruit distributions, then into restaurants, etc. Our club's thoughts are appropriate under item 4, as the Street Renaming Commission is dealing with items under the purview of the French Quarter Management District and the Historic Commission, and the council should be appointing people who are versed and ready to comment on the motions of the City Council on renaming historic streets and parks. We would like to make sure that those being appointed to the French Quarter Management District are aware that the Italian community would like support from the council, commission, and staff to erect historic markers. We hope those being appointed to the French Quarter Management Historic District's Landmark Commission are aware that the legal name for the street around the circular land near the World War II Museum since 1810 is Tivoli Circle and should remain Tivoli Circle. Why do efforts to rename meet the charge of the Historic District Landmark Commission per the city charter? Are the appointees versed and willing to discuss the renaming? We would appreciate recognition of Italian heritage and influence with the cultural current designated Tivoli Circle and request more discussion if needed. We want to preserve, enhance quality, and give recognition to diverse culture in areas of the city for citizens and tourists. Elenians care, as did our partnership with Cabrini School long ago, and will continue our involvement in the community with your help. The next comment is from Charles Lasala, not a paid representative. Thank you, council members. I am commenting under item 4, appointments, specifically French Quarter Management District, Heidi Redmond Rains, and Historic Landmarks Commission of Ann Red and Jennifer Green. These appointees should be aware of current events, debates, and initiatives in New Orleans. Their respective commissions have mission statements or charters to address and advise the council. The council should be appointing people who are versed in the mission of the Historic Districts Landmark Commission and are ready to comment on issues regarding historic streets in the French Quarter districts. The published role of the Historic District Landmark Commission per the city charter includes the words to preserve and stimulate the tourist economy. The legal name for the street around the circular land near World War II Museum since 1810 is Tivoli Circle and should be preserved as Tivoli Circle. An added proposal is to develop inside of the circle as Victory Place to promote the National World War II Museum. The nominees to the Historic District Landmarks Commission should be aware of this and place it on their agenda. Ms. Heidi Redmond Rains, the appointee to the French Quarter Management District, should be aware of the purpose of the district includes to enhance the walkability and pedestrian-friendly environment of the district and to nurture the cultural and historical features of the district. The Italian community has petitioned the City Council's committees to support the effort to erect historic markers on the Italian contribution. Her commission should review if historic markers meet the purpose of the district. Finally, the chairs of the commission and council committees are asked to all public comments on the agenda under other matters. Public citizen input to government is a pillar of our democracy. The next comment and the last comment is by David Moraldo, not a paid representative. Dear sir or madam, initially thank you for your consideration of this matter. I'm writing you today to comment pursuant to item 4 as the Street Renaming Commission is dealing with items under the purview of the French Quarter Management District and Historic Commission, and the council should be appointing people who are versed and ready to comment on the motions of the City Council on renaming historic streets and parks. I question if the efforts to rename meet the charge of the Historic District Landmark Commission per the City Charter. Historic District Landmark Commission per the City Charter is preserve and enhance the quality of neighborhoods, strengthening the city's economic base, stimulating the tourist industry, improving property values, fostering economic development, and encouraging growth. As you may or may not be aware, the Italian American community has played a significant role in the city of New Orleans and the entire United States of America for over 100 years. As you may also be aware, the most recent parties lynched was in New Orleans, resulting from the killing of an Irish police chief when an angry mob rounded up a group of Sicilian New Orleanians and unceremoniously, wrongfully, publicly lynched them all. As you are also aware, in addition to a book written about the matter, in 2019, Mayor Cantrell acknowledged the matter was wrong, reprehensible, and she formally apologized for its occurrence. In today's sensitive culture, I implore this honorable commission not to draw any additional attention to this matter, and that the street around the circular land near the World War II Museum, Tivoli Circle, should remain Tivoli Circle. Thank you in advance for your consideration, and with kindest regards, I remain David J. Moraldo. And those are all the public comments.
Great. Thank you so much, Andrew. And with that, let us go straight to the appointments. Mr. Carter. Thank you. Do we have a motion to accept Gail Benson as an Audubon Commissioner?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Giarrusso,
Second.
second by Councilmember Nguyen. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any no? Thank you. Let's move on. Next, Downtown Development District, Damon Burns. Do I have a motion to accept Mr. Burns as a member of the Downtown Development District?
Move adoption.
Moved by Councilmember Brossette. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Nguyen. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposition. Next, French Quarter Management District, Heidi Raymond Reyes. Thank you. Do I have a motion to accept Heidi Redmond Rains as a commissioner for the French Quarter Management District?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Jeruso, seconded by Councilmember Moreno. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? No. Next is our Historic District Landmarks Commission. First is Ann Red. Mr. Carter. Thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Moreno, seconded by Councilmember Jeruso. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Thank you. Next is Jennifer Green. Thank you. Do I have a motion to accept Jennifer Green's appointment to the Historic District Landmarks Commission?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Jeruso, seconded by Councilmember, I think that was Council President Moreno. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Next, New Orleans Public, oh, I'm sorry, that one has been deferred. F, New Orleans Redevelopment Authority, Sadat Spencer. Great. Do I have a motion to accept Mr. Sadat Spencer?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Jeruso. Was that seconded by Councilmember Moreno? Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Nay. Great. Thank you. All right, and that concludes our appointments. I want to once again thank everyone for serving and putting themselves out there to serve. This is really a wonderful slate of commissioners for these boards and commissions. So we appreciate your service in advance of your service. With that, we would like to go to the fifth agenda item, which is our tree preservation study. I think we have, who do we have here presenting? Andrew? Are they on? I don't see it on the,
I'm here, council member,
oh, there you are. Thank you. I'm sorry.
and I'd like to be able to share my screen for a presentation.
Paul, are you able to do that, please?
Yeah, you should be able to share now.
Okay.
So council members, the reason for this and our next couple items on the agenda is, as you know, the City Plan Commission has done a tree preservation study for New Orleans. This past October, it was last revised. It's really important when we talk about the city and how we're moving forward, that when we talk about green infrastructure and how it benefits our city, we really need to pay attention to trees and what that landscape has impacts for, especially when we're looking at the number of rain events that we're having that are dropping more rain. When we talk about water management, there's nothing more efficient in doing that than trees. And we really need to be more complete as a city in our efforts to ensure that we can not only sustain our city, but also have a wonderful quality of life here. So with that, I would like to turn it over then to Mr. Kramer.
Thank you, council member. And I'd also like to mention before I start that I have also on the call with us is Joanna Farley, who was the lead author of the study on City Planning Commission staff, and Bob Rivers, my director, if he's not on already, should be joining momentarily. So the tree preservation study was initiated by the City Planning Commission prior to the pandemic to address potential ways to protect mature trees from unnecessary destruction while promoting the expansion of the tree canopy in New Orleans. The city's master plan provided the goals for the study as they had been identified in the original 2010 master plan, as well as amendments in subsequent periods. And these include promote and expand the New Orleans urban forest to reach 50% tree canopy by 2030, promote tree preservation and planting on private property, establish criteria for heritage trees, considering additional protections for qualifying trees and appropriate incentives for their retention, explore regulatory options for the retention, replacement, enhancement of landscaping and live oak canopies characteristic of New Orleans, providing for the complete protection of trees and landscaping during public construction and power line maintenance and construction of public utilities, and promoting a diversity of tree planting species and speeds of growth. There is wide agreement on the desirability of trees in our urban setting, including these benefits as outlined by the LSU Ag Center, including energy conservation. The shade of trees can reduce home energy consumption by up to 30%. Property values, trees can stabilize neighborhoods, add property value between 13 and 20% through curb appeal and increase civic pride. Air pollution reduction, water quality and stormwater management, absorbing rainwater and reducing flooding, providing wildlife habitat, improving the environment, and providing character to properties and neighborhoods. Tree planting can be a way to show support of an institution or to honor a friend or a loved one. And as with any study, the CPC staff looked at best practices from other jurisdictions with tree policies. One of the key lessons that I believe we will be discussing more of today is starting with a needs assessment. While the master plan has a goal of 50% tree canopy by 2030, we don't actually know where we stand now with New Orleans tree canopy.
So can you, if you don't mind, Paul, if I just pop in for a second, could you explain again what this means? Because I know when we talk about the master plan, right, that they want to increase our tree canopy by 50% by 2030, this tree study was just that, right? And what we need is an inventory in order to know what our starting point is. And my understanding is we don't have an inventory of our tree canopy for the entire city.
That's correct. When we started this study, we one of the first things we set out to do was find out what our current tree canopy was, and we contacted the city's IT department, and they worked with us, but realized that they were not able to obtain that data and produce maps that would show that. So we got hooked up with the Regional Planning Commission and with an organization called Baton Rouge Green, which is a grant provider, and also to a company called Quantum Spatial, who agreed to cut their fees and work with the grant program. And this was all during the pandemic, so the city didn't have any money to spend. So we looked for nonprofit partners that might be willing to help with that. And then we came upon Soul. And so I think you'll hear a little bit more of that from Joanna later. But so there is a project pending that could produce the data, gather the data based on 2016 aerial photography to tell us at least what our tree canopy was at that time. And ideally, we'd want to do this again for a different time period so that we can see trends.
And then I know we do have a tree inventory, but it's only of public trees, right? It doesn't include all of the trees.
That's correct. Parks and Parkways did a tree inventory, and that's down to the exact tree of all the trees under their jurisdiction. So that's all public right-of-way or public parks or public properties. It doesn't include parks not under their jurisdictions, such as City Park or the lakefront.
Okay, thank you.
And their inventory is more detailed than what we're talking about in a tree canopy. It would be even more expensive to take it down to the level of knowing what tree is on what property. But we'd like to at least find out what parts of the city have a good tree canopy and what parts do not, in order to be able to plan and make strategic choices about how to use our resources.
And that's really important, because when we talk about that, we're going to, as you said, we're going to hear from these wonderful nonprofits that have been doing the yeoman's work on this. And if we had a clear plan, this would really allow us to make sure that we can leverage the limited resources that we have and then maximize the resources that these nonprofits are doing and the work that they're currently doing.
Right. So as we mentioned, Parks and Parkways has a detailed inventory of all the public trees under their jurisdiction. And this tree preservation study recommends supplementing their inventory with data that at the very least would provide the city with its tree canopy coverage numbers by geographic location. This data is not currently available through the city's IT department. Ideally, this data could be obtained from different time periods so that we understand trends. We would like to be able to analyze the percentage of tree canopy in different neighborhoods, which could inform decisions about heritage tree preservation, as well as where to direct and encourage tree planting resources.
And also when it comes to land use, I would think it would also be very helpful too for the council members when we have to deal with land use and new developments to really figure out ways of incentivizing private development to really participate in tree planting.
Indeed. The tree preservation study provides a range of options for potential tree preservation regulations, including recommendations on which trees could be protected by size and species, the tree's location on the private property, how trees may be replaced if their removal is necessary or approved, the process for removal of trees or confirmation of size and health of the tree, and new tree planting requirements. And we give a range of options going from least restrictive to most restrictive, depending on the resources available to the city and the inclination of the administration and the council. The study discusses protection of trees during construction activities and also the need for a fee and lieu tree planting fund. In most cases, a 1-to-1 DBH replacement of a large mature tree would not be possible on the subject property, so there would need to be a way to pay into a fund that can be used for tree planting in a strategic manner. Though the name of the study is the Tree Preservation Study, the study finds that there is a vast untapped potential for tree planting in low density and suburban style neighborhoods that have front yards or space along the sidewalk. Zoning regulations currently only require tree planting for larger multifamily, commercial, and mixed use projects. On this slide, we mention the recently passed Lower Ninth Ward IZD, which requires such tree plantings for any dwelling taking advantage of the IZD's reduced parking requirements. The CPC staff sees this as a sort of pilot project because it allows a choice between providing the tree planting in the front yard or along the public right-of-way. And then finally, the study recommends producing a tree planting and care guide, launching an outreach campaign with residents and arborists if preservation regulations are adopted, clearly articulating tree regulations and management responsibilities and regulatory framework, and enhancing enforcement mechanisms for removal of protected trees. And I'll just add that the City Planning Commission did adopt this study and forwarded it to the City Council and the Mayor in October 2020. And that was the end of my presentation.
Well, thank you so much. Council members, are there any questions regarding this or comments? I'm very thrilled that y'all did this and you completed it. I know your department has been under a lot of stress lately with so much work, but this I think is really valuable when we talk about our city and making it more livable and also more sustainable. So I thank you, and I know the ball is kind of in the council's court as far as starting to look at how we can really make sure that some of these suggestions are made into reality. Thank you. Oh, we've got 2 public comment cards. Andrew?
Okay. Okay. The first public comment is by Gerald Lanasa, not a paid representative. Today's Governmental Affairs virtual meeting policy and voting agenda deprives the citizens the opportunity to fully participate in the process. The pre-selected single names for boards and nomination seats clearly exclude the public from the full deliberations. The public is further denied the right to fully participate in the process for agenda items 4, 6, and 7. The tree canopy agenda items, resolution number R2117, items 6 and 7 from today's agenda. Agenda items 5, 6, and 7 expects the public at large to provide input before the complete presentations are delivered. As an example, those special interest privileged groups presentations may include chemical synthetic fertilizers, maybe weed control with Roundup, glyphosate like poisons. Are we going to take up the sidewalks to protect the root systems? The discriminated against and illegally excluded public at large does not know this AM. The best practice here is to allow the interested public to comment and participate before, during, and after. Are all these agenda items truly essential? Non-essential decision-making should be postponed until the public can be there and have a chance to fully participate. These limited transparency virtual public meetings should focus on the very basic things that the government and and civilization is supposed to do, which is protect its people. My recommendation is for the governing bodies to look very closely at each item up for a voting decision to determine if the action is truly essential to protect the residents and taxpayers. Most importantly, the pet projects and political giveaways should be deferred until the time when transparency and full public participation can be safely restored. The recent meeting approach eliminates live, real-time public participation and limits public comment to the vague and less than full transparency agendas. The Governmental Affairs and Council policy at least gives the appearances that some leaders are using the pandemic to push through pet projects or cater to special interests. What is the rush and why are we excluding the public from the full process? Why is the public being denied access to present any and all concerns or ideas to the entire committee and council body?
Time.
And that's 2 minutes. Next comment is by Sarah Pritchard, not a paid representative. As Executive Director of the Broadmoor Improvement Association, one of the city's oldest neighborhood associations, I'm writing to express my support for the proposed resolution to conduct a comprehensive tree inventory in order to create a tree master plan. The execution of such a study and creation of a master plan will contribute to the climate resilience of New Orleans as well as the overall public health of New Orleanians, and I believe that Soul is uniquely equipped to partner with the city on this initiative. As Executive Director, I've worked with Soul to organize multiple tree plantings throughout Broadmoor. I'm confident that Soul has the knowledge and expertise needed to execute this project, educating New Orleanians about the importance of trees on our urban environment and supporting the regreening of our city. That's all the public comment on this. Yeah,
Thank you. All right, well, we appreciate that. And let's move on to, we have our partners here to talk about what their efforts have been in terms of really bringing back our tree canopy and all these wonderful projects that y'all have been doing. And I think the first person we have up is Connie. Connie is the Executive Director of NOLA Tree Project. Connie, I'm going to turn it over to you, but first I just want to say you've really been outstanding to work with. I think you've worked in every single councilmatic district. I know you and I go back to rebuild days after Katrina. And so your work and able to marshal so many volunteers has really enabled us, and I know some of the district council members feel the same, enabled us to have amazing tree giveaways as well as plantings. I know the wonderful median that we did, the neutral ground over there on Landry was huge. We're still getting compliments from that, and that wouldn't have happened if y'all didn't supply the trees. Parkway Partners supplied some of the resources, and you supplied the volunteers. And it's those kinds of partnerships that also allows the city to leverage limited resources. And I know Ann McDonald, who used to be the Executive Director of Parks and Parkway, such a wonderful leader in all of this. And I know she was a great partner of all of you that are going to be speaking today. And we all know how passionate she was about the trees. So I think it's really important that we continue her work as we move forward. So with that, Connie, I would love to turn this over to you.
Thanks, Kristen. Yeah, it's been a long journey, taking over Hike for Katrina from Monique Pielier. I'm in my 8th year now. When I took over Hike for Katrina, Monique's goal was to replace and reforest the city from the hurricane, and to the 100,000 trees that was the estimate that we lost. So I've really tried to carry on her mission, and we are going to hit 60,000 trees this year between all of our giveaways and our plantings. And yes, we have done every district citywide, so in the city. So one of the things I talked to Kristen about yesterday was, the importance of the partnerships. And when you have to pull these kind of projects off with limited resources from a city government end and a nonprofit end, the collaboration is really important. So having Parks and Parkways and Ann McDonald was really key to accomplishing all that they accomplished and we accomplished collectively. And then when you bring in that third party private sector, like Entergy, who sponsors, is a great partner and sponsor to me, that can help. Sometimes they come and plant, they will fund the trees, they will fund the project. And then they have, required volunteer hours that they have to meet as employees. So they've been key to plantings with me for the last 3 years. as well as the title sponsor of my Big Treasy giveaways. So when I think Ann, out of any city agency I've worked with, really understood the power in joining together and collaborating, government, nonprofit, and private sector. And when you get these three all working together, you're kind of an unstoppable force. And that's how I feel like we have been the last 7-8 years since I've taken over. So that being said, with big obstacles financially or whatever for city agencies and nonprofit, I think if we can pull these plantings off. I know Susanna can do it as well. Between your neighborhood associations, that private partnership, the city agency. LB Landry is a perfect example. Kristen really wanted to get that planted. I went to Ann. She said, well, you know what? I have the budget for the trees. Can you do the volunteers? Can you provide the stakes and the mulch? And I'll provide the mulch. Can you provide the bags and the stakes and the tools and run it and plant it? And that's how that came together. So I didn't have the money for the trees, but she did. She didn't have the manpower or the money for the other things, but I did. So that's how LB Landry is the perfect example of how we can make, that was 75 trees planted within 2 days. And that, look at the impact, stormwater wise, beautification wise, clean air wise, that one planting will do in itself. And I've had multiple plantings in Gentilly and public green space with Ann, Lakeview, all over the city, Mid-City. So that's kind of, mainly what I want to stress to you all, that though it seems like a big mountain to climb with all that city has to deal with, it's highly possible, and it's not a hard thing for us. I mean, we're used to doing this. We turn it on a dime, as you know. We can pivot. We can just come together and make things work when we have the support. City Council is very important in support of my Big Treesies. Everybody has given me some grant money, to that I'm able to give 100 more trees at my giveaways, thanks to every council member who contributes to that Big Treesy. So, it doesn't take much, but it just takes a lot of collaboration.
Thank you. Did you want to go into your presentation?
Well, I think that'll take a long time because it's really a lot. I mean, do you want to slide through it, Kristen? Because
No, I mean, Paul, if you're there, if you would just want to go through the slides, and I don't know if you wanted to comment on any as we go through.
yeah.
Quickly.
Looking for my glasses here, sorry. Where's my glasses? So you can just see it's the overview of the organization, the brief history. As I said, the goal is to replace the 100,000 trees with volunteers and collaboration in the city of New Orleans. And we are celebrating. Actually, we are going to, every milestone, I dedicate a tree to someone when we hit a milestone. And the 60,000th tree, actually, I'm going to dedicate this tree to Ann McDonald. So we're going to be planting that in Armstrong Park for her in the next few weeks. A beautiful live oak tree she selected. Yeah. So that's, how we do mark and celebrate our big milestones. So you can go on to the next. The three programs are our urban forestry program, which is all the plantings, the Big Treesy giveaways, and then the Grow Healthy Kids was a fruit orchard program that we started about 3 years ago at public schools and on empty lots that people were putting community gardens in and neighborhoods that wanted fruit orchards. So that's been very successful. We've done about 12 public schools, fruit orchards, edible schoolyards, and we have 2 lots in Central City that are orchards now. So that's been, a good program for us too. So that just kind of goes into the urban forestry program. That's a picture of a city park planting. We do a lot with city park in the Coterrier Forest, Scout Island we're concentrating on now. So we probably have about 1,200 trees there. And then Louisiana Nature Center, because of the Chinese tallow problem, has been a big one out in the east at the Nature Center. And that's an invasive tree, if you don't know, that destroys all the healthy trees around it. We've got about 2,000 trees at Nature Center now. That they've put on hold because of COVID. We haven't planted this year, but we are doing City Park. So that's the urban forestry program that I just talked about, Nature Center, City Park. Big Treesy giveaway is our big, this is how my numbers really climb. I give away 500 trees at each in 5 districts of the city. We do 1,000 in the one with Parks and Parkways. So we do 3,000 trees a year given to residents. I have to tell you, this came out of, I think, a frustrating point of mine. When I took over from Monique, Hike for Katrina, we were doing a lot of neighborhood plantings. That's what Monique was focused on. And what I found was we would give the people the tree, we would plant the tree for them and provide the volunteers, do all the work. And then what I found was that people weren't taking care of their trees. They just, wouldn't water them, and it was a lack of being invested themselves in it. So this is how I came up with Big Treesy. I'm gonna go bring 500 trees to a local school or whatever. They can come to me. We will give them a free tree. We will teach them how to plant, and we will talk to them about maintenance and get them off on the right foot. This is what's been so successful, is I find that people are invested and they go home and they're excited to plant, and they have their kids and their dogs with them. And it's just a happy, wonderful event. I get a lot of joy out of it because I know when they leave, they truly want to go plant that tree, and I know they're going to take care of it. So I think we have a less attrition rate than we had when we did the neighborhood plantings. And that's why I've kind of substituted personally neighborhood plantings with Big Treesy. I'll still do some neighborhood plantings, but I have to have a lot of commitment from the neighborhood associations to do it. So, but my focus has been more Big Treesy, public green space with Parks and Parkways and the parks. So that's just an example of the Big Trees. We also, fruit trees are just so exciting. We sell those as a fundraiser because my grant doesn't cover the cost. They're expensive, but a lot of people want fruit trees now. So I am literally doubling my sales from last year at every Big Treesy. I used to average selling maybe 50. Last week, Joe, at the one in Holly Grove, we sold 110 fruit trees. At the Christmas one, my holiday fruit tree sale, I usually do 70. I sold 150. So that is so exciting that people in New Orleans want food as well. They're all talking about their chickens and their gardens now when they come and get their fruit trees. So to me, this is also because we're not only a struggling tree canopy city, but we're a food desert, especially in the lower, the struggling neighborhoods, lower income neighborhoods of New Orleans. This is the Living School out in the east. I think, Cindy, you may be familiar with them. We put in a 40 fruit tree orchard for them. And that also, we got sponsored by one of our corporate partners, actually paid for the entire thing and came out and planted with us. So these are, the picture that's at the New Orleans Mission, the women's dorm. We help put in these gardens. All the trees on the side are our fruit trees, and we help them plant all of the vegetable gardens. That was done about I'd say 2 to 3 years ago. So our other programs, as y'all know, is, you know, I do a lot of disaster response. Tree season is typically November to end of April for us. I want it to be a year-round organization. You can only mulch and trim so much with volunteers in the heat of the summer. So hurricanes hit and floods hit when we're very slow. And so I believe in paying it forward because of my background with Katrina recovery. I know how to gut, I know how to rebuild. And now I know how to feed people with COVID. So as you know, we have learned to pivot, Robin and I, and there's no disaster. Kristen, as you know, we went and helped feed all the first responders at the hotel collapse site to help you out for 2 weeks down there. So you know, I wear many hats, and people say, who are you today? NOLA Tree or NOLA volunteer, or who are you? But I just believe if you know how to do something and you can help and you have the time and the energy, why keep it to yourself? And that's just been my philosophy with NOLA Tree. I do intend, as I'm older now and I am tired, getting a little tired and burned out on the disaster work, I do intend to scale back after COVID and really concentrate on the tree, the mission of NOLA Tree Project, and that is stormwater management, more plantings, you know, rain gardens, things like that. So I do have a goal to, in 2021, to really, really focus on the original mission that I took over Hike for Katrina with.
Well, I just want to publicly thank you, Connie. When the Hard Rock collapse occurred, you know, you were the first person I called when we needed to really start feeding the folks, all the first responders and the families of the victims. And we stayed there, and you stayed there with me every single day for 2 weeks and 3 weeks, I think. And I just want to thank you and all your volunteers. It was really remarkable what we were all able to achieve, and it wouldn't have happened without you. So thank you.
Thank you. It was an honor to do that, Kristen. I'm glad you called me. And then this is our COVID response. Kristen, again, you were the one who lit the fire, calling me the day after Governor Edwards closed us down on March 13th and the mayor. And Kristen called me on that Saturday morning at 9 o'clock and said, well, what are you going to do for COVID? And I said, well, what do you think the need's going to be? I was so clueless. And she said, oh, clearly it's going to be food insecurity, Connie. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to have seniors and housebound people who can't get out, and their senior centers are closing, and they're not going to be able to get food. They don't have ways to get to a grocery store. They don't have family, or they're too sick to leave their houses, or they're too afraid. So I said, okay, I have this army of awesome, wonderful local volunteers. I know I could pivot to that. I just need the food connection, and you know, it'll take me a few days to get in with the kind of the learning curve of this, but I think I can do it. So Kristen, thanks to you, you immediately connected me to Natalie over at Second Harvest. We talked that Monday morning, and I had 500 meals in my van on that following Wednesday, March 17th. I'll never forget it. And we started delivering to your district, actually, all of the senior complexes around the French Quarter, and then Algiers, you know, a lot of the senior areas there. And today we're still doing it, you guys. We're up to 330,000 meals we've organized. The impact of my volunteer effort and the meals is right now at $2.6 million to the city of New Orleans. Cindy, we still deliver a lot to the east. You know, I have about 80 deliveries going out to the east. Mid-City, we're in 17 zip codes. So we're still going, you know, we're delivering 2 days a week, about 3,000 meals a week, 1,500 meals on every Monday and Wednesday get delivered by our organization. So I want to keep going with that. I raised $50,000 over the holidays. A miracle kind of fell out of the sky for me. It's a long story, but I'm able to fund 3 restaurants now on my own. Toops Meadery, Messina's, and Howlin' Wolf to prepare meals. So I've been able to pull off a second harvest, take a little of my pressure off of them, and be able to pay some restaurants to do about 1,300 meals a day for me. So I really want to keep that going. I have enough funding to get me through February, through like the first week of February. So if y'all know anybody who can help fund that, I really would like to keep this going till at least the end of March. Then I think there's light at the end of the tunnel for us. I hope to be able to shut this program down by May or the end of May. Because I think with the vaccine and all of that, people aren't going to need it as much. I hope, I pray. But the people we deliver to are very, very dependent on us, y'all. So I do want to, I've given it all to keep this thing going. And in between, we're holding tree giveaways and planting trees and all that good stuff. So I'm spinning a lot of plates right now, but it's kind of what I do, so that's my COVID response thing. So that's about it.
Well, thank you so much, Connie. You truly are a remarkable woman, and you know how to get these volunteers in gear. And I just really hope that I know we're going to continue this throughout the year when we talk about more trees and how desperately they're needed throughout the city. Council members.
Yeah, I really do want to plant a lot more next year, Kristen. As I said, I do want to scale back on the disaster work. It is a commitment I've kind of made to myself. So let's get going, y'all. Let's try to find funds and get this master plan going and get more trees in the city. I mean, they're definitely needed, and we need our cypress trees and our oak trees.
Yes.
The big trees that suck up water, And I find more people are coming in wanting big trees. They used to be afraid of the big trees because they fell on their houses. And, the joke was when we first started, we couldn't give a tree away. But look, I flew Joe through 450 trees in 3 hours last Saturday. Cindy, at your tree giveaway at the Viet, we went through, I think I had 15 trees left out of 600 in 3 hours. So people are excited. They want to plant. They know the importance of trees. Now, I think the awareness is getting out there.
Great. Thank you so much. Council members, any comments for Connie? No?
All I just want to say really quickly was thank you to Connie and Sol, for all of your work. And I can attest to sort of the foot traffic. I went out to see Connie and Mark real quickly on Saturday, and it was, like Connie, it was hard to say it was a sale because it almost looked like you were giving it away, how many people were flowing in and out of the place. So it's just so nice to see your work and how much people appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thanks for your support. And it was a giveaway. I mean, we only sold the fruit trees.
Yeah.
So, 450 trees were given to residents Saturday. So thank you for your support with the Harris grant for that. That helped a lot.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Connie, I just wanted to thank you. I know you and I have known each other for a minute since Katrina as well.
Yeah.
I think prior to knowing you and getting into a lot of this green work, I don't know if you guys know this. I don't know if my colleagues know this about me, but I am not a big tree person. I believe in everything in concrete. It's just like everything nice and clean, but I have learned through Connie the appreciation of natural resources, what it does for our environment, what it does for our community. Because I get frustrated when we get residents complain about trees that are interfering with their sidewalk. So I think there's a lot, and as I was listening to the study, I know the study is going to look at being very mindful where we plant these trees. Particularly, we've seen where there's been oak tree or trees that has really overgrown and interfered with people's sidewalk, and it's very frustrating for them. So I'm glad that we're doing the study and then learning from previous mistakes and where we're planting it, but still meeting the goal of making sure that there's, because I've learned now that trees play a major role in preventing neighborhood from flooding, and so we just got to be very strategic on where we place those trees, so that way it has a major impact to the area. But I just, again, Connie, thank you. I know you ain't going anywhere. You say it all the time, that you're going to take a break. Like I said, I've known you for now close to 20 years now in the work with VID and everything. And I've heard that before. So, but thank you so much for all the work that you do and continue to do for our city, and continue to nurture me and help me to understand the work that you do, how it's going to help my district as well.
Great. Well, I love working with all of y'all. You're awesome.
Thank you so much, Connie. And this is a good segue into the next issue. What Councilmember Wynn's comments were is Jessica Dandridge. Jessica, are you there? I'm talking about the Water Collaborative of Greater New Orleans. There you are. How are you?
Good.
So
How are you? How are you,
again,
Kristen?
my friend? A very good
I know.
Would you want to go into, would you please introduce yourself and let folks know what the Water Collaborative does, and we'll head right into your wonderful presentation.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. For those who do not know me, I think I've met Joe, and I know quite a few people on the call. My name is Jessica Dandridge. I am the Executive Director of the Water Collaborative of Greater New Orleans. I am a born and raised New Orleans native. I'm a Katrina kid. So when Katrina happened, I was actually 16 years old. And so my life is, my adult life has all been shaped by Katrina and how I view the world. So I'm happy to be here. And today I'm really going to bring it all together. So Connie and Susanna really work on trees, and I'm really an organization that really is the glue for all of this work. And I will talk a little bit about what we do and what we're going to be looking forward to the future. So I'm going to be talking about a lot of policy stuff, a lot of things that are happening on a regional scale as well as a national scale. So I invite everyone to ask questions and stop me if you have any ideas or thoughts, because I feel like I'm going to have a lot of content here. So yes. And I want to also just note that our logo in the beginning, we always talk about the Mississippi River, but the one thing I love about the Mississippi, last year I did a pilgrimage down the Mississippi River, starting in the headwaters in Minnesota, all the way down to Venice, Louisiana. And water is the glue. In the Mississippi River, we often forget. We see it every day. I live in Algiers in Christians District. I see it all the time, but it actually connects the entire country. It's the only body of water that does that. And so we take on all of the country's health, we take on all of their pollution. And so remembering that in this context is really important. Next slide. So the Water Collaborative has been around since 2014. It was a grassroots effort by organizations who work in stormwater management and climate resiliency to connect all of the work around water that we see here in New Orleans and across the region. It was also started by private, public, and government agencies, as well as nonprofits. So it was always a way to bridge resources and information, mainly out of the Urban Water Plan that was created in 2013. So our mission is to build a diverse network of all who are impacted by flood risk. And really, as we see with climate change, that impacted list is growing and growing substantially every single year. And to do that, we do that in three strategic areas. One is educating the public about why New Orleans floods and why our region floods, advocating for policy measures that really work in those areas, but also advocating for engagement strategies, campaigns, and so on. Focusing on equity, how do we grow our workforce in a way that is diverse, with inclusive of those of various races, genders, and gender identities, and so on. And then lastly, policy, as I mentioned before. So we do quite a lot. I wear also a lot of hats, and I'm always moving from different directions and different phases. So we are always going to be a resource. So I ask everybody who's on this call to view us as a resource. If you need to connect, or if you need to know, or if you need a study or a white paper, we often have all of that information on hand. Next slide. So if you guys haven't already noticed, our greatest threat in New Orleans is water. I know probably everybody on here has experienced flooding. Your constituents have experienced flooding. And a lot of people oftentimes want to blame Sewage and Water Board. And I'm not a big fan. I'm not here to advocate for Sewage and Water Board. Me and Joe had a conversation earlier last year about how we can fix it, and we're working on that. But the reason why our region is flooding is much larger than just a utility or public works issue. It is a climate issue. And so in order to do that, we mainly focus on bringing working groups together. We collaborate across sectors in every single project that we do. We never focus alone, and we always try to collaborate with someone else to create solutions. So that's one thing I want you guys to take away as well, is that when we say water collaborative, we truly work collaboratively, and really understanding that collaboration is not always easy. As you all probably know on this call, collaboration is not always fun, but it is necessary. So that's really our core of what we do. Next slide. So we do quite a few programs all year long. So we organize and convene professionals in the water sector, which I mentioned. We also provide programmings like lunch and learns every month. We do social learn, volunteer events. We actually install stormwater management, and we provide insight into how to do that. We actually work with government agencies on a daily basis. We work with Sewage and Water Board, DPW, Parks and Parkways, Office of Resilience and Sustainability, and the list goes on. We also work with state agencies. We are the chair of the Louisiana Watershed Initiative Region 8, which is going to be a big impact on how water management is going to proceed in the future here in New Orleans and across the regions. And lastly, we work with national organizations. We actually just signed a policy measure today with Representative Ilhan Omar to go to Joe Biden's office to put a water shut-off moratorium in nationally. So we are always working on a national scale. I want to be clear that we're the only organization in the state that represents water in all its intersections. So there are CPRA, there are other organizations that work on coastal issues. When we talk about urban water and its impact on people as far as flooding, as well as affordability, as far as access and quality, we're the only organization that's representing the state as well as the city on a national scale as well as a global scale. So having your input on here is really, really important to ensuring that our ability to make sure New Orleans is represented financially as well as in our social discussions is really important. Next slide. We've done a lot. So like I said, we've been here since 2014. So just, I can't, if I literally had a list and I had like 5 slides, I was like, oh, we're never going to get to the actual conversation. But I want to just highlight some things that we did in the past and a few things that we did last year. So the actual current stormwater code that we use to this day, that's in the building code, is actually created, advocated, and passed mainly by people in the Water Collaborative. The Water Collaborative actually created it. They also did the edits to it, and they continue to advocate for its expansion. We piloted and installed the first ever permeable parking lot in the city. So permeable paving and pervious surfaces are really popular here. We were the first to do it and bring it up to scale at Parkview Tavern, who was a great partner of ours. Last year, we actually petitioned and moved Sewage and Water Board to enact a water shut-off moratorium. So right when COVID happened, we really want to focus on what our issues are, and it was making sure that everybody in New Orleans has access to clean water so they can wash their hands, they can bathe, and they can continue to take care of their health. Had it not been for our push and our petition, which had close to 200 people on it, we may not have a water shut-off moratorium, and we would be in a much more desperate situation than we are in now. So I'm in constant communication with people at Sewage and Water Board to make sure that we don't shut off the water while we're dealing with this crisis. We also work with Sewage and Water Board for them to create a pilot program for a water affordability program. They never had one. News to maybe some people, maybe not. The way it's normally worked is you go to billing and you try to negotiate a better bill. Sewage and Water Board actually is working to create a program that is specifically tailored to people who are making under a certain amount of money. And that is actually a national standard that we're working with them on and we're helping to promote. And lastly, I mentioned the Watershed Initiative. For those who are not familiar, this was enacted in 2016 by the governor. It splits the state into 8 regions. We are part of Region 8, so we actually are a part of a coalition with Jefferson Parish, St. Bernard Parish, St. Charles, and Plaquemines Parish to create a watershed plan that we all agree on. What this means is that we are going to get funding from the state. We are going to actually manage all watershed projects that includes levees, that includes even green infrastructure. So these is going to be, the work that we do is going to be standardized across regions. So we've been chairing that, and actually today, the meeting earlier, we passed some of the recommendations to the state. So we're constantly working more again on a larger scale, statewide scale. Next slide. So I was invited here to talk to bring context to the conversation. Connie perfectly mentioned a lot about stormwater management. Me and Susanna talk about it all the time, but I really want to add context. This actually photo, I believe, was actually 2 years ago. So, and so New Orleans, if we do not do anything, we will be underwater by 2050. This is actually the old estimate. I'm reading new estimates that it's 2040. There's new estimates of 2030. The point is the clock is ticking. And the first city to be impacted will be New Orleans, when I say urban area, but also the coastal regions of Louisiana, if we do not act. And so what that means is that it's not just green infrastructure, but it's also meaning we have to reduce our carbon emissions. We have to think about how we can think about net zero emissions in the city of New Orleans. And as a whole, we have to think about green infrastructure as a part of a larger system as far as green jobs and climate jobs, and trees are also part of that conversation. We are a system and we're not separated from one another. Often people think water is separate. Oh, that's cute, it's fun. It's not cute, and it's actually very important work. And water is going to be the biggest threat to our city. There are some cities that's going to be heat, some cities it's going to be air quality. Ours will be water, which means we're going to have other issues. Next slide. Specifically for New Orleans, the first people to feel the impacts of flooding, if you haven't already known, is low-income communities, which are often Black here in New Orleans. Flood damage is actually a recent study that came out last year. Flood damage basically impacts communities of color more than any other group in the United States of America, because usually communities of color during the early times when we were creating communities, they were put in areas that are low-lying. They were put in areas that had environmental quality issues, and their areas were not properly invested in because of the lack of attention in taxes. So their water systems are degrading, and they are really feeling the risk of it today. It's all, they say the chickens are coming home to roost. And as you see in New Orleans, that map at the bottom, you can, if you really looked at the maps, which I don't think it's working right now, but it would show you both maps of where the highest amount of African-American communities are, and the elevations are literally dead on, spot on each other. So which means every time it rains and floods, we often focus on downtown New Orleans, we often focus on the French Quarter, Canal Street, but the communities that are most at risk are those that are low income. And in New Orleans, that also means Black. You can see some of the statistics from last year. 75% of our residents spend 12% or more of their income on water bills. And I know, again, Sewage and Water Board is not popular, but we actually have the most inequitable water utility in the nation. That is not something we should be proud of. We have the most, more than any other major city, including New York, Los Angeles, and other larger cities. So we have a major issue here that's caused by, again, basically systematic racism and lack of funding in our systems. So I really want to put that on there because of the way our city is our racial makeup of our city, and we really have to have this conversation in context to this. Also, it exacerbates social inequality. If you had savings, it's now gone. If you were saving for college, you can't save for college. It also creates PTSD and generational trauma. When it rains, I literally have people emailing me, calling me every single time, scared of what's going to happen. That is actually a response of PTSD and trauma that we're seeing. And of course, every New Orleanian feels it, but my family has lived through Betsy, Camille, and Katrina. And in every single tropical storm, my family has lost a home. So if you think about that, every single time my family's lost a home, we've lost thousands of dollars in equity in our family, and we've lost wealth. So I'm middle class today, and I'm perfectly happy with that. But imagine if my family didn't lose their properties, if we were able to keep them. And so thinking about that in those terms is going to be really helpful. Next slide. And I kind of mentioned this, but I love the work that I do. and because it's scientifically proven pathway for social and economic liberation. We have been investing in tourism and service industry for years. I worked as a bartender, like a lot of people in New Orleans, for a long time. I worked in the food industry myself, but I was paid $2.15 an hour. But in green infrastructure and tree planting and water management, you can get paid starting at $15 an hour. Imagine if our youth can be, instead of being a bartender and getting paid $2, they can get paid $15. It also allows you to be creative. It allows you to look at other set factors and sectors. And so that's one of the reasons why we really want to push what we're doing today here and more, hopefully over the years, is because this is a way to get New Orleans out of the place it's been in for decades. Next slide. This graphic is not showing up, but basically what it was a graphic of all of the benefits of green infrastructure, which is the long list of at least 20 benefits. Many of the things that were mentioned in the tree study. Water management helps reduce, obviously flooding, it's good for air quality, it's good for water pollution, it actually reduces noise pollution, it is important for our habitat, and it supports local community engagement. And so really pushing on that. The types of green infrastructure are bioswales, we hear about rain gardens and so on. So thinking about all of that in context is really important. Again, next slide. And lastly, I think I mentioned this earlier, but I really want to double down on that. I know recently we passed the renewable portfolio standard here in New Orleans. And so when we think about water management, and I know the mayor has been really pushing on that, is how do we think about water management as a greater system of jobs in New Orleans and Louisiana as a whole. Today is a very special day. Yesterday, Joe Biden passed the Paris Climate Agreement again. And so this is an opportunity for New Orleans to get back on the map and to really see how we can be a part of this greater conversation. As we phase out of oil and gas jobs, which is happening as we speak, as we phase out of jobs, as we already know because of COVID with tourism, and hopefully it bounces back, but some jobs may not come back. How do we move some people into that? And the number one request when COVID happened, I had people in my inbox every single day asking, how can they come into this workforce? What can they do? How do I get a green infrastructure class? How can I learn how to create a rain garden or bioswale? It is a major ask of people here in the city. And in order for us to really meet that, we have to grow our workforce. Next slide. And I want us to know and build upon that. We've already invested $260 million in green infrastructure in Orleans Parish. That does not include public dollars and nonprofit dollars. This is just federal. If you really put the millions of dollars already invested into nonprofits like Connie's and Susanna's and other organizations like Waterwise and Rainforest, NOLA, and so on, that it's going to be close to $500 million so far. We've already talked about what the watershed, the Coastal Master Plan and both the watershed program are the first ever to happen in the Gulf South. And then recently, last year, the governor finally did the climate task force. So basically, I'm just saying that the time is now for us to act on things like today and further action. Next slide. And this is just a picture of what we are doing. There's so many great photos, I can do so many of them, but there are so many organizations that are really doing this work. At the top left is work from Thrive graduates. They have a Green Works program that actually graduates people who are working in, as landscapers and people who cut grass, and they actually move them into green infrastructure. The top and middle, we have Green Light in their very beautiful rain barrels. We have the climate study that they did at Ganoff with the Deep South Center for Environmental Justice. The bottom is the Front Yard Initiative and removal of pavement and concrete. People at the very bottom in the middle is actually City Park, and people walk on that park all the time on Wisner, but that actually is green infrastructure. And it's so beautifully done and it's beautifully blended in. On the far left is actually one of our programs called Water is in the Game, where we engage young people on how to do this work. In the middle is Susanna's project that we're working with her on, and the reforesting of Pontchartrain Park. So there's so much work going on. If I told you about all the work, we would be here all day, but it's constantly moving and constantly growing and constantly being invested in. Next slide. So I'm going to end on these last two things. I think I've kind of honed in on the point. And I've tried not to go too deep into like, what is a bioswale? If you guys, I don't think this is the audience for learning about how to build a bioswale, unless you guys really want to know that. But I've tried to give an overview of all of this. But there are two things that need to happen that I'm requesting as an organization. And I would love for you guys on this call to think about this in the long term as we think about our future in green workforce and green jobs. So the first thing in the next slide is collecting data. One thing I did a key stakeholder conversation with national leaders from various states. And the one thing they said, New Orleans could get much more money invested in dollars invested if we were collecting data. We are not collecting information, and we have done more than larger cities when it comes to green infrastructure, trees, water management, and so on, but there actually is no data set that is collected in one entity. So I am asking the City Council to think about that, and those people on the call and those listening, how do we get all this information into one place? Obviously today we're talking about the tree inventory, but we actually don't have a green infrastructure inventory. DPW has their own set, Sewage and Water Board has their own set, and then the private ones are not disclosing that, or there is no way to collect that. If we collect that, we would have much more investment in the city from Fortune 500 companies and other national and international partners if they see that we're doing the work. Basically, if we are living in New Orleans, you see it maybe, but oftentimes green infrastructure blends in, and that's the whole point. You're not supposed to notice it. So if we can invest in collecting information and data, that would be really, really helpful for our growth. Lastly, invest and mandate a permanent office of resilience sustainability. And the reason why we're asking that is, again, there is no place for this information to live. Right now, it's living in several different offices with several different people, and it's actually a duplication of resources and it's wasteful spending. To increase effective management, we really want to put all of it in one office. And this office has been slowly divested. I'm asking that it gets reinvested and you move people from various offices, including Sewage and Water Board, Department of Public Works, Parks and Parkways, the Office of Urban Planning, and so on, into one place. That way they can work together on all things. There's a second thing that I'm asking for on the next slide, which is a big ask. Next slide, please. Which is a big one. And we're going to take a breather, which is passing the stormwater fee within the next 3 years. Why are we needing to do this? Because there are a lot of organizations right now who are actually pushing out a new workforce that is young and ready to go. We have organizations like Limitless Vistas, Groundworks New Orleans, Greater New Orleans Foundation has WaterWise. They have so many organizations that are actually pushing out new workforce. And we're thinking, actually the city just got the Advancing Cities grant and that we're included on that. And that asks for 1,000 workers to be ready to go in the next 3 years. That is all great and fine and dandy, but there is no place for them to go because we're not collecting data and because we don't have any way for them to have consistent work. A stormwater fee actually has been studied several times. Actually, the Water Collaborative did a study last year and we passed it, that it could work and it will work. It actually employs thousands of workers. We talked about they start at $15 an hour. It promotes diversifying the workforce, increases opportunities for DBEs. And it actually is an equitable way to do a fee. And then the last thing is a drainage improvement to low-income communities that we talked about who did not have it before, which will reduce gentrification. And I want to really be clear that we always talk about displacement of communities and gentrification. The reason why gentrification happen is because they're not happening on an equitable scale. Usually when we talk about planting trees before this work, it was the communities that could afford it. We think about St. Charles Avenue with the beautiful oak line trees in the Garden District. It's because they can afford to do that type of work. If you do it on a full scale and an equitable scale, when you're looking at data, it actually would prevent and reduce gentrification because it's happening where it should be happening. And on the next slide, how does that work? I want to really define what a stormwater fee actually means. It has to be fair, it has to be transparent, and it has to be equitable. The mayor has tried to pass a stormwater fee several times, and it failed. And the reason why it failed is because it's not a lot of understanding about what a fee actually looks like and what it means. So it has to be approved by a local council, which would be you guys at some point, then calculated the fees based on a specific property's burden on the system. So it's basically calculated by your square footage of your property. And then if you have less cement on your property, it actually will reduce your fee. The more cement you have, the more you have. And then this is a big thing, it's going to include tax exempt properties. The biggest people who are putting a burden on our water system is actually our nonprofits, our churches and their parking lots, our schools and their parking lots, and then also larger facilities that are related to tourism. They all actually contribute more than actually a homeowner. And then the homeowners end up paying more for the drainage system. So to make this better, we actually have to include tax exempt properties in order to offset the cost from homeowners who are already paying way more than their share. The fee, also, like I mentioned, if you put green infrastructure in your property, you put a rain barrel, a rain garden, a bioswale, a retention pond on your land, it actually reduce or almost remove the fee. And then there'll be a need-based fee for those who are low income and who are making us under a certain threshold. And then lastly, to increase transparency and fairness, there'll be a yearly report on infrastructure improvements and economic development, which hopefully would come out of the Office of Resilience and Sustainability. That's a lot of food for thought, but I want to bring this because as Susanna and Connie's work continues, there's going to be a higher demand for workforce, and there's going to be a higher demand of need for the work that they're doing. And we have to make sure we are properly bringing New Orleans into the forefront around these conversations. And that's it. I think I covered a lot, and I'm happy to answer questions or have thoughts. And thank you again, Christian, for having me. I think you're on mute.
I just want to thank you so much. You did not disappoint. We asked you to come so you could give a broad perspective on what this is. Sometimes people don't understand the importance of trees, and it might sound simple, but it's really connected to everything else. I love how you connected to social equity. I think people forget that. And I think all you have to do is drive through, like you said, neighborhoods like the Garden District versus aspects of like what, slide you showed of Pontchartrain Park, which I think Susanna is going to talk about later. And it shows that there's not the same type of green infrastructure dollars. What drove that home to me a couple years ago is I read a study that they did in Washington, D.C., and they compared two neighborhoods that were close to each other, but one was more, and they just looked at the urban tree canopy. One was more affluent, the other was not. And they created a heat island where actually it was 10 degrees hotter in the low income community versus the upper income community. And that was because of, it was deforested, they had no trees. And then their health benefits were also significantly less than the other community. And so we really need to talk more about this. When we talk about structural racism, I don't think people really understand how where it becomes structure, right? And it becomes structure even in green infrastructure, and where we decided to invest many years ago. And I think we have a unique opportunity now, which is why you're on here, which is why Connie was, and next Susanna, to really bring the public awareness and elevate it to what this issue is about.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
And hey, Kristen, this is Connie. Yes. To add to that, Entergy did a study a couple of years ago on hot spots in the city. Are you aware of that? And the 7th Ward was identified as one of them. And Angela Chalk with Healthy Community Services done an amazing job getting funding. And we just planted 150 trees in October with her. I know, Jessica, you know all about that too. And she's got research going on, and national universities are tracking her, and it's really amazing what she is pulling off. I didn't know if you knew, but that's a great model, and I know Susanna knows what she's doing out there too, But Entergy has identified these old neighborhoods, Treme, Seventh Ward, you know, with all the concrete, there's that they are heat indexes in the city. Much
Well, I think that speaks to what Jessica said, and and the number one thing that we need to be doing is collecting data.
Exactly.
Right? And having one location for data. And one of those points is also an inventory, right? Which is why we're all here too, to say we need to have those baseline data points so we know where to put these resources, right? Which neighborhoods do we need to start focusing in on? And all three of you women are doing it intuitively because you know where your needs are because you're so connected to our communities. But we also have to base it in data. And Jessica, I love that point you said about how that will also bring us more resources, right? That if we had the data points, and Connie, you brought that up too, that's where then the money is going to go because people understand where the investment needs to be made.
Exactly.
Ooh, I love you ladies. Y'all are awesome. Susanna, you want to talk about Soul too and where we are and throw up your.
Yeah, Andrew or whoever's doing PowerPoint, I'm wondering if I could just share it from my computer. That would be easier for me.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let me see here. Wait, I guess I should share my screen first. One sec. Okay, can you see that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and then just need to move this thing over. Oh, I'm trying to get my notes to come up. How do I move the Zoom bar on the bottom over? Let's see. Let's see, hold on. Okay, there we go. There we go. All right, so do you see my notes or just the screen?
Just the screen.
Okay, great. All right, so thank you so much to everybody who has spoken. Jessica, we do talk all the time, and one great thing that she did not toot her horn about that she should toot her horn about is they also work with organizations so that they don't duplicate efforts, which I think is really helpful and fantastic, and especially regarding data collection. I think that's going to be great moving forward. You know, like how can we get that all in one place so we can all use it? So thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Connie. Before I get started, I just want to thank the Mayor's Office for their attention to the matters that I'm about to discuss. I'm really excited about this. And thanks to Councilman Palmer and the Government Affairs Committee for allowing me to present today. And to Councilman Palmer for always supporting us in our reforestation efforts and for always being open to new ideas and strategies. And of course, thanks to Parks and Parkways. And we're really excited to work with Michael Karam. We're just thrilled about him starting in his new position. And also thanks to Paul Kramer and City Planning for their support. Paul and I have been chatting since July. I'm going to give you a very quick history of Soul and what we do and some of our achievements. Jessica mentioned that we have this really exciting project coming up in Pontchartrain Park. We are going to plant in one planting season 715 and 30-gallon trees there. We really try to work with the strategy of totally canopying a neighborhood. We piloted that with you, Councilman Palmer, and Old Algiers, and we know that it works with this opt-out method. And that's when we can plant an entire neighborhood. That's when we can really see the results of impacting stormwater and air pollution and the heat island. and also making neighborhoods more livable with beauty and with shade and with people being more inclined to come outside and get exercise. So we've planted about 3,500 trees so far. We've planted in every council district. We only plant trees. We don't do giveaways, and we only plant 15 and 30-gallon trees. Our first year we planted 200 trees, and now we're up to about 1,500 trees per year, and we want to scale that up. But we got to get through COVID first. Our goal is to drive a resilient and environmentally equitable New Orleans through reforesting our urban landscape. And the whole purpose of us launching SOUL in 2016 is to mitigate stormwater runoff and flooding, air pollution, and the heat island effect by planting the urban landscape with trees, with native water-loving trees. Last year, we started watering trees. And talk about job creation. We now have 2 waterers. They make $15 an hour. We, as we can afford it, we hope to increase that, but we're proud that we have 2 employees now. So by watering the trees and maintaining them, we have a really high survival rating of over 97%. So we're really excited about that. Both community and data are really important to us. We track all of our trees. We use the My Tree software by Baton Rouge Green, and that allows us to generate the impact of our trees on stormwater, on carbon, on property values, and each tree has a tag on it, has a unique number. And so this allows us to keep track of our trees, to go back and visit them and say, oh, if this one's knocked over, we'll go stand it up. Or if this one needs mulch, we'll talk to the community, the person at the house about like maintaining their tree better. I mentioned the opt-out project in Algiers. We piloted that with Councilman Palmer, and it has just been an absolute game changer. You can reforest swaths of a neighborhood at a time. And so we plant between November and March, and then between April and October is when we do our community outreach, which is a huge part of that 97% survival rating too. We work really closely with the communities, and it's interesting, Connie, your comments about the neighborhoods, because we've had a different experience. So it'll be interesting to chat with you about that in the master planning process. But we've experienced a lot of buy-in and a lot of interest in taking care of the trees. What we found out is that, when we plant in a low-income neighborhood, some of the people we plant trees for can't even afford a hose. So that's where the watering comes in, because we want everybody to have equitable access to trees, because it's not equitable access to beauty or the trees being cute. It's equitable access to a lower energy bill. It's equitable access to lower obesity rates because you want to go outside and exercise. It's access to stormwater management and knowing that you can actually walk outside your door and it's not flooding. Anyway, we're excited to be here, and I am going to get started. Okay, so the real reason I'm here today is because we have a huge opportunity to come together and support a comprehensive tree inventory that informs an urban forest master plan that will serve as a roadmap toward a 50% tree canopy of New Orleans. The inventory, master plan, and the 50% canopy by 2030 are all called for in the master plan for the 21st century published in 2016. We've raised $150,000 towards the project, which funds the tree inventory, which is a cost shared with Baton Rouge Green, plus the urban forest master plan. We have the skills to execute the planning and a great deal of the planting. We will work closely with the city, the nonprofits of the green sector, including those on this call, and the community in making this happen. We've been in close touch with the city department since July, but an MOU hasn't been signed, which essentially will give the blessing of conducting the inventory and supporting the urban forest master plan. I hope that very soon we can get over this last hurdle. To be clear, without an MOU, our funder will not give its support for a master plan or the inventory. Should we prove that the city does want to partner and move forward with this, it's very likely that we can continue deriving revenue from this funding source towards large-scale urban forestry projects that benefit the whole city. So next, I'm going to run through some slides that will help remind us of why this is so important. Okay, I'm going to show you some a few aerial photos. This is Atlanta. This is where I'm from. It was called City in the Forest. You know that Atlanta is a huge and sprawling city, but it's also a very forested city. And all of these photographs are taken from Google Earth at the same scale. This is Savannah. It has a 36.4% canopy. This is Nashville. It has a 51.1% canopy. See how green it is? This is Montgomery, a 47% canopy. Here's New Orleans. So we know we lost 100,000 trees during Katrina. Where are we now? What is our canopy coverage here in New Orleans? Well, we don't actually know what our canopy coverage is because, as Paul mentioned, we don't have a comprehensive tree inventory yet to give us this baseline. So I'm going to come back to this in a little bit. Reaching a 50% canopy by 2030 means that all of us on this call and all of those following this call are going to have to come together and make sure that trees are equitably distributed to the lowest income neighborhoods, which are the most under-resourced areas. These areas have the least amount of trees. These are the neighborhoods that were redlined, and today they're topographically the lowest. They're the closest to industry and thus home to the worst air quality in the city. Part of an urban forest master plan must involve directing reforestation towards these neighborhoods that were once redlined and that sit the lowest topographically. Let's plant them out with trees and change their air quality, making them healthy places to live. Aside from mitigating stormwater runoff, we can plant an enormous carbon sink throughout our city. That would be so exciting. This is Pontchartrain Park, not a tree in sight. The most under-resourced neighborhoods are barren and hot. In fact, 27 people have died in New Orleans from heat illness in the last 10 years. So let's plant trees in these neighborhoods and lower the air temperatures up to 15 degrees. Let's reduce the urban heat island effect. Let's lower people's energy bills. The tree inventory will give us the mapping tools to identify these areas. This is my yard. Aren't you jealous? This was when the pumps failed on August 5th, 2017. Stormwater runoff and flooding, perhaps our most existential crisis here in New Orleans. It's real. We cannot ignore stormwater runoff and flooding because every year we're reminded that we do actually live below sea level. We're sinking. We're at the forefront of climate change and that our drainage system needs relief. We've got to stop sending all of our stormwater runoff into the drainage system. We've got to keep it on site. That is what green infrastructure does. We got to think outside the box, and outside the box isn't too hard because here's the good news. Live oaks drink 1,000 gallons of stormwater per day when it rains. 1,000 gallons. Cypress drink 880 gallons of stormwater per day when it rains. We can plant our entire city as a system of trees and change how our city's drainage behaves during a storm. And the great news is that trees are the most affordable green infrastructure to install and maintain, and they also create jobs. Until then, our livability is affected with every rainstorm, whether it's trying to get out of our houses, this is the front of my house, down the street to pick up our kids, or through a flooded tunnel to get home. Is this a burden to think about? Is this a burden to take action on? No, it's a responsibility of government, of business, of citizens, of the healthcare community. It's your responsibility and it's my responsibility. So you can see that this really isn't about trees. It's about people. It's about livability and equity and resilience. But guess what? We've got some important tools in our toolbox. The first being that being green in New Orleans is easy. Somebody called me last summer and said that some trees we had planted had a watermelon vine growing up the trunk. Somebody had just, spit out some watermelon seeds, and the watermelon turned into a vine, which turned into fruit. We can grow anything in New Orleans. So we've got that in our pocket, right? We can grow anything. And with a little TLC, they will thrive. Another tool that we have in our toolbox is our sense of community and taking care of one another. Connie spoke to that very well during her presentation. Look at the neighbors feeding neighbors during this pandemic and sharing childcare and sharing homeschooling duties. New Orleans is special. I don't want to leave. You don't want to leave. We want our city to be healthy and habitable, and we want it to be here when our kids grow up. But this means that we have to be realistic about climate change, flooding, air quality, heat island, all the things that make a city livable and allow it to be here in the long run. We've got to take care of our neighbors and our neighborhoods that don't have trees or any of their amazing benefits. Let's talk about the tree inventory and the urban forest master plan. The master plan for the 21st century, published in 2016, calls for a 50% tree canopy by 2030. But as mentioned, we don't have a baseline to work from. We don't know what our existing percentage of tree canopy is. We don't know if it's 5% or 25%. We can't know this because a comprehensive inventory of trees across the city does not yet exist. Parks and Parkways ordered a beautiful inventory a couple of years ago. It's beautiful in its detail and its quality. It's a document that is relevant to their department or to somebody who wants to do work on Parks and Parkways property, like right-of-ways or neutral grounds. But in order for the city to know how many trees that it needs overall, then we need to do an overall tree canopy. In July 2020, city planning called me and asked me to help fund a tree inventory. And I answered with an enthusiastic yes. In turn, I approached a funder who did agree to fund it if the tree inventory is used to foster a plan for reforesting city, and if the city will show its buy-in. And this makes sense. An inventory without a plan and without support is like a tail without a dog. There are some great ideas in the master plan for the 21st century, such as the call for a no net loss of tree canopy for public and private property, and establishing criteria for heritage trees. Most other cities with great canopies have all of this in place. Promoting tree preservation and planting on private property. After all, our city is a quilt of private and public properties, with all pieces of fabric being equally relevant to addressing climate change, flooding, and so on. We at Soul are absolutely committed to making this happen. We want to gather the input, ideas, visions, concerns, and experiences of the city and its departments, as well as that of the green sector nonprofits and the communities who comprise our city. And we want to turn this information into an urban forest master plan that is both ambitious, but also realistic and achievable. As mentioned, we have the funding and we're ready to do the hard work. Now we just need you to meet us halfway. We ask for municipal support at the highest level to bless this project. We also ask for the support of the public of all communities on this project. There are many cities, both domestic and abroad, who have successfully designed a master plan and reforested their cities. Let's work together, examine the precedents, and design something that works for us. So by using research, data, experience, and vision, we can address situations like we see here in Bunny Friend, where the heat is unnaturally high and unhealthy. We made these maps with Parks and Parkways inventory, those are the green dots, and with some GIS layers from the GIS department. So what we can do when we're working on this master plan is do studies like this. You look at the income, you look at the heat island, you look at redlining, you look at flooding, and you look at trees. So we can overlay this map with this map, which puts the trees over the flood layer. And then you get the hot spots. You say, okay, we want to reforest the whole city, including Bunny Friend. Where are we going to start in Bunny Friend? We're going to start where it floods the most, where it's the hottest, and where you don't have any trees. There are smart, proven ways to deal with our problems, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can use the precedents that are out there and the technology that is out there. We do need to tailor a plan that fits our unique challenges, needs, experiences, and visions in our city moving forward. Let's remember, this really isn't about trees, it's about people. And the people of New Orleans deserve a well thought out plan that is actionable. Together, all of us, we can reforest our city. That's it.
Susanna, that was awesome. Thank you so much. Do you mind holding on? We've got a couple of public speaking cards. I'm going to put Andrew on to have some public comment.
Okay.
Okay. First comment, and I very much apologize for if I mispronounce this name. The comment is from D. Jalagat Chiruyat, not a paid representative. Trees are very important for a healthy ecosystem and humans as part of the ecosystem. So here's why we need to preserve the existing trees in New Orleans and continue to plant trees in every space available. Benefits to the ecosystem environment: carbon sink, take use carbon dioxide and produces oxygen through photosynthesis, flooding control, food for herbivores, pollinators, seeds, consumers, and foragers, wind erosion control, shade, habitat, thousands of organisms. Benefits to humans: may increase home prices, curb appeal, brings a community together through nature walks and bird watching, community pride in a green neighborhood, pushes people to spend time outside when there is a bit of shade, and that is good for emotional, mental, and physical health. Trees can be used as an educational resources for teaching from kindergarten to a college course. Trees create jobs from planting to maintaining to cutting down. Sadly. Human/human interaction: tree planting can create a community by bringing people together to plant trees in the community. And that's all I could public comment on this. Sorry, the rest is all.
Excellent. And then Susanna, so we have a resolution here that we're not ready to pass at this committee, but I wanted it here and on the agenda at present so people understand that it's in the works and that that we're working towards it. I know you've spent many months working with the administration to bring it to fruition. And I think there's some pieces here that still need to be worked out. And so we'd like to bring it back in as soon as we can in order to sign off on it. But I'd like you to explain the resolution really quickly on what it is, and then we have some public comment dealing with the resolution.
Oh, okay. I gotta find, oh, okay, here it is. Okay. So this is a resolution, not an ordinance. So this will not have the force of law, but it's symbolic, showing the city's support of moving forward with this inventory and with the urban forest master plan. So
You're right. The resolution is not what, we do need to vote on the resolution. That is fine. It's the MOU that needs to be worked out. So,
oh, okay.
I'm so sorry. My
That's
brain
okay.
went to the trees a little bit there.
Okay, I'm very relieved because I'm like,
But no, yeah. So please talk a little bit about what we're trying to do here with the resolution is to set it up so that the city can sign an MOU with Soul in order to get the tree inventory done. And so if you want to speak a little bit to that would be great.
sure. I mean, that was basically the point of my presentation, but it's saying that reminder that we're on the front lines of climate change here in New Orleans. We always have to keep that at the forefront of our minds. So we need to get to a 50% canopy per the master plan and per, our city still being here in 50 years because of the stormwater absorption capabilities of trees. But we need a plan to get there. And that starts with an inventory. So we have to know where to start with this new inventory because we know where we want to get. So once we have the inventory, we can say, here is A, Z is the goal of 50%, and then the master plan will show us how to get there. And that is a collaborative process where we work with all the relevant city agencies, Parks and Parkways, DPW, city planning, GIS, and then all the relevant nonprofits, NOLA Tree, Water Collaborative, all the different folks. And then most importantly, maybe doing community outreach in all the planning districts and getting people's input on what they see and what problems they have. You got to have the data and you got to have the community because they fill in one another's blanks, and so basically we're asking for the city at the highest level possible to endorse the moving forward with the master plan, giving their blessing on it and giving their blessing with using the inventory to inform that plan.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And that really is, and I hope the administration, I'm sure they appreciate that, is that we really want this resolution to go through in order to continue the dialogue and the discussion and let the city know that we're in full support, not just of all these efforts, but also the administration who's made some incredible inroads into green infrastructure. And I was actually at a groundbreaking earlier today, and it really has been remarkable what the administration has been able to accomplish with that. And this furthers it in a very smart way that leverages limited resources. So with that, I'd like to know, I'm not sure if we have all of our council members here. I know it's Councilman Giarrusso had to go off. I'd like to be able to vote to move this to the council. Councilmember Nguyen, are you here? I see Councilmember. Thank you. Is Councilmember Moreno still here and Councilmember Brossette? Okay, so what we're going to do is, since I do not see that we have a full quorum, we will still bring it to the full council next week since we brought it through committee. Andrew, you said we have some public comment cards. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, the first public comment is from Don Herbert, not a paid representative. Soul is a great asset to several communities in New Orleans Parish. As a resident of New Orleans that appreciate the beauty, open space, and serenity of Lakeshore Drive, I applaud Soul for the dedication to adding and replacing public trees to Lakeshore Drive. As a location that is visited by many visitors for enjoyment, the over 100 trees planted this year that will add to much needed shade, protection of the environment, and beautification of the area. Soul has also replaced many trees in the New Orleans East community, working with community members in the selection of native trees along boulevards that were lost as a result of hurricanes and tornadoes. Soul is a much needed and appreciated partner to the city of New Orleans and should be commended their participation in writing an urban forest master plan. Next comment is from Kevin White, not a paid representative. I'm in support of the citywide comprehensive tree inventory. The inventory is the first step towards formulating a master plan to bring New Orleans to a 50% canopy cover by 2030. This is a huge endeavor, and I believe that we need strong cooperation and mutual support between the city and nonprofits like Soul to accomplish this goal. I regularly volunteer with Soul, serving as a block captain and planting trees on community planting days. I dedicate my time to this organization because I believe in their mission to strategically reforest New Orleans in an effort to combat our largest existential crisis, flooding, but also because I believe that trees should not be a barometer of health and wealth. All residents of our city deserve the shade and beauty and resilience that trees provide in their immediate communities. Next comment is by Andreas Merkel, not a paid representative. Turn from the side street devoid of trees onto Upper Bienville, Ursuline, Britannia, Esplanade, Gentilly, or any of the other story canopy streets in New Orleans. Everything changes. The feel is suddenly luxurious and verdant. The temperature drops by 10 degrees. The street corners invite people to linger and chat. Those trees started their lives as young trees. They were planted because folks knew that an urban canopy is by far the most cost-effective way to transform the neighborhood. And much of the benefits are hidden from the quick drive-by glance. Flood control, fresh air, lower utility bills, etc. The city of New Orleans is a not-for-profit, and its not-for-profit partners want to reestablish this canopy throughout New Orleans, and especially in the places that were denuded by Katrina and remain so ever since. This can't be done one tree at a time. It is to be based on a comprehensive sense of where we are, where our priorities should be, and how we get there. This is why we need to complete a citywide tree inventory and a comprehensive plan to reestablish New Orleans as a quintessential great shaded southern city, with the emphasis on those neighborhoods that have been underserved for far too long. The Board of Soul NOLA urges you to support this resolution to allow us to partner with the city. We have raised the funds to underwrite the tree inventory and the urban forest master plan, and thus it will come at no cost to the city. With the city's support to this resolution, the signing of an MOU recognizing our partnership, we look forward to working with the community and our nonprofit and city partners in reforesting our city using the master plan as a guiding document. Thank you for your support. The next comment is by Eugene Green, not a paid representative. Dear members, New Orleans City Council Governmental Affairs Committee, it is very good news that the New Orleans City Council is considering moving forward on the development of a comprehensive tree inventory in our city. It would be great if more of our city's neighborhoods were lined with mature trees, which provide shade, stability, and beauty to our communities, enhancing property values and providing scenes that encourage outdoor exercise. All trees of all sizes help to improve life in our city and on Earth. They give us the oxygen we breathe in and hold the carbon dioxide that we exhale. Trees provide habitats, sometimes permanent, for birds and other wildlife. Maybe most important to New Orleans, trees can help to protect New Orleans from flooding. Trees can absorb up to hundreds of gallons of stormwater per day and then release the stored moisture back into the atmosphere. I serve as a member of the board of directors of Sustaining Our Urban Landscape, SOUL, which is spearheading the development of the city's tree inventory, and which has already made a positive impact on our city by planting thousands of trees in many neighborhoods. SOUL is, for example, replanting hundreds of forest trees removed but never replaced in the development of the historic Pontchartrain Park subdivision. Development of a comprehensive citywide tree inventory will have a tremendous positive permanent impact on the quality of life in our communities and city. It will be great to have the city and SOUL, NOLA, working together on this most important project, the Urban Forest Master Plan. Dear council members, the Urban Conservancy has partnered with SOUL on efforts to bring multiple green infrastructure benefits to neighborhoods where residents are vulnerable to displacement due to flood risk and other effects of climate change. Last year, in one of our collaborative projects in the Hoffman Triangle, SOUL planted 125 trees on 67 lots, preventing 3,030 gallons of stormwater runoff by interception of tree canopy. When mature, these trees will store over 25 gallons of stormwater and store 787 pounds of carbon. An important and impressive as this data is, it represents only a fraction of SOUL's annual plantings. Enveloped in that data is evidence not only of SOUL's commitments to transform our city through systematic recanopying, but also of its organizational capacity to be a great partner to the city in writing an urban forest master plan and contributing to the creation of a tree inventory by systematically collecting, analyzing, and sharing data. Sincerely, Dana Enos, Executive Director of the Urban Conservancy. Next comment is by Nellie Katzen, not a paid representative. On the Greenway, we've seen the impact that over 500 new trees can have on making a vibrant and sustainable place for people. And we've seen the challenges that can arise from an inability to accurately measure and benchmark their impact. Our organization will benefit greatly from the proposed city action, which would allow us to accurately assess the impact of our environmental stewardship programming and secure grant dollars to support it. When benefits to health and wellness, massive potential to manage stormwater and keep soil in place, and a positive impact on quality of life, New Orleans tree canopy is one of the major assets that will keep New Orleans a viable and vibrant place for people to thrive in for the next 300+ years. An accurate audit of the tree canopy will not help us leverage the value our trees bring to our city and her people, but will also allow the city and partner organizations to set targets and benchmark our progress toward a larger, more sustainable canopy. Next comment is by the Reverend Gregory T. Manning, not a paid representative. I am in full support of R21-17. The goal of 50% tree canopy within New Orleans is both commendable and critical. The establishment of such a benchmark in the city's master plan illustrates compassion for the residents of New Orleans and a reasonable and significant step to ensure that New Orleans is an environmentally equitable city. The balance between urban development and a healthy environment supported by green infrastructure is difficult to maintain. Therefore, protections against the irresponsible destruction of God's precious gift of trees is necessary to prevent profit margins from overshadowing the dire need for heat reduction, flood prevention, and a myriad of health benefits. The tireless efforts of the NOLA Tree Project, the Water Collaborative, and SOUL are to be commended as they collectively work to promote and envision a New Orleans in which everyone is afforded the benefit of trees. Micah 4:4. Each man/woman shall sit under his own oak tree or grapevine, and no one will make him or her afraid. Corey Thomas Miller, not a paid representative. As a resident of neighboring Jefferson Parish and an employee of an entity located in Orleans, I strongly support Resolution R21-17. A healthy urban canopy in the heart of this region offers so many benefits for the environment, human health, and economic benefit, and long-term sustainability of this beloved community. Please support. Next comment is by John Guarneri, not a paid representative. On behalf of the Bywater Neighborhood Association, we proudly support the proposed resolution in recognition of the efforts of SOUL's partnership in writing the Urban Forest Master Plan. Through their tireless efforts in partnership with neighborhood associations across the city, we can and will make a significant impact on the regreening of New Orleans. The mission plays a crucial role in the improvement of the health and environment of our city. This daunting task is not simply a matter of planting trees, but rather a process of educating residents as to how important this is and how each and every one of us can make a difference through our actions. Equally as important, it will set an example for other like-minded organizations and show the entire nation that New Orleans is among the cities joining with the common goal of protecting our future for generations to come. We look forward to our continued participation with SOUL and its efforts and all of its efforts in the regreening of New Orleans. Next comment is by Allison Moon, not a paid representative. By establishing a broader tree canopy, the city can mitigate some of its flooding issues. It would lessen urban heat island effect, and it would stabilize soils, especially if planted around levee areas. There is so much good that would come with growing the city's tree canopy. SOUL has done a wonderful job of engaging communities and bringing people together around this issue. I've also volunteered with CRCL to help plant trees in the marshlands. Louisiana and its communities need these native plants. I have a whole dissertation I could present you on the economic benefits of broadening tree coverage, but I'm sure Jessica's presentation will be more lively. Next comment is from Alex Delico Dunn, not a paid representative. Council members, the SOUL organization has been truly a blessing for the Algiers community, especially in the Algiers Riverview area. Our area was decimated by the loss of trees due to storm and Father Time. As a lifelong resident, I remember the beautiful canopy and was very visible as you crossed the Greater New Orleans Bridge. It has gradually disappeared. The organization SOUL met with us and offered the opportunity to help us restore the green beauty we enjoyed for many years. Initially, some folks were hesitant for assorted reasons. We started planting on a 10-block stretch neutral ground of Nunez Street and provided the picture that many remembered existed for many years. That began to renew the interest and the floodgates opened. Everyone wanted a tree in front of their home in the easement. We share the critical benefits trees provide, like drinking all the rainwater that helps with drainage and flooding and helps air quality, among other benefits. With great passion, we truly recommend Seoul to partner with the city to provide the excellent services to other neighborhoods in our great city. Sincerely, Alex Dunn, President, Algiers River Review Association. Next comment is by Pamela Broom, not a paid representative. New Orleans has the profound opportunity to model for global urban communities what an investment in the preservation of trees and the promotion of green infrastructure can mean for the overall health and wellness of our people and spaces. The local impact of our citizens and visitors would be invaluable. What a progressive step forward for New Orleans to join regional, national, and international communities that have implemented green infrastructure and stewarding the planting and preservation of tree canopies as an environmental necessity and quality of life imperative. Next comment is by Sabine Winter, not a paid representative. The proposed resolution is a great step in the right direction to preserve and grow the city's tree canopy, and I'm very happy to see city government officials support this effort that has so far mainly been in the hands of community organizations like Seoul. Trees are some of our best allies when it comes to stormwater management, combating urban heat island effects, providing for cleaner air, and creating a greater sense of community and more livable city. Not only will an extensive and healthy tree canopy help us with stormwater management, trees also provide many other benefits. According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the net cooling effect of young healthy tree is equivalent to a 10-room size air conditioners operating 20 hours a day. Trees also play a big role in our well-being. Urban residents who live in shaded areas shaded by tree reportedly experience less psychological distress and enjoy better overall health. Trees connect us with nature, and people are more likely to take walks if they can do so in shaded areas. More protective legislation for public and private trees is crucial and desperately needed to achieve and maintain a widespread tree canopy. Seoul will be a great partner to the city in writing an urban forest master plan, since Seoul's approach to strategically plant and track large native water-loving trees in clusters to create a connected tree system is ideally suited to help and restore and expand New Orleans urban forest to reach 50% tree canopy by 2030 as per the city's master plan. Therefore, I ask you all to please support this resolution. Thank you. Next comment is by Jessica Dandridge, not a paid representative. Trees are more than beautification props in our built environment. They are truly catalysts of community-wide change. Trees and greenways and green infrastructure drive economic growth, address environmental racism, empower communities, and support sustainable development. Trees reduce greenhouse gases, cools urban spaces, reduce all forms of pollution, and support our mental and physical health. More so, trees and green infrastructure promote economic development. Tree canopies have generally directed over $300 million in revenue in cities like Atlanta, Indianapolis, and New York City. Resolution R21-17 supports the long-term community viability and resilience in our historic city. This measures, along with the recent passage of zero carbon renewable energy portfolio and continued efforts by the city to promote green infrastructure, are strong strategic actions that complement the goal of a sustainable New Orleans. Thank you, Councilmember Palmer, for prioritizing trees and climate resiliency as our nation turns back to the goals of the Paris Climate Agreement yet again. New Orleans must be a national and international leader in this conversation. Resolutions like R2117 maintain our status as a leader in green jobs and solidifies us as an exemplary leader in climate resilience and environmental justice nationally. Next comment is by Ann Roberts, not a paid representative. As the saying goes, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is today. When people think of New Orleans, they often think of lush tree-lined boulevards. Though mere block 1 will see that the perception is not fully representational of our city. This is our opportunity to become a healthier city for all of our communities, as an improved canopy has many proven values: functional, monetary, social, and psychological. As such, I support resolution R2117 to preserve and grow New Orleans tree canopy. The Rotary Club of Mid-City New Orleans also supports the resolution R21-17 and its efforts to reforest New Orleans. We believe the Urban Forest Master Plan is a great step forward. The combined efforts of the city in sustaining our urban landscape, Seoul, can successfully implement this plan together. We have seen the initial success of Seoul's opt-out planting pilot program in Algiers. Our members have worked to support Seoul's mission for the last 4 years, providing volunteers for plantings around the city, and we believe all communities will benefit from large-scale reforestation. Seoul not only brings trees to plant, but brings life, hope, community, and grace. Reforestation must be a continuous effort because of the environmental struggles that we face, including hurricanes, subsidence, air quality, urban heat, island effects, sea level rise, and climate change and flooding from standard from standard afternoon thunderstorms. Inequity across NOLA also speaks to the necessity of new trees. The inequity is particularly evident on Ursuline Avenues as it spans Broad Street. A thick protective canopy towards Bayou St. John versus almost no canopy towards the Tremette. Trees are for everyone, and every New Orleanian deserves to enjoy the benefit trees and clusters provide. Next comment is by Gerald Bonassa, not a paid representative. The entire meeting should be rescheduled. Under Louisiana law, all virtual public meetings must clearly inform the public on how to attend the teleconference or video meeting. The multiple published agendas for today's Government Affairs Committee do not include the details for the public at large to attend. Nothing should be voted on at today's session, and the meeting should be adjourned to a time when the public can be notified on how to full participate in the session according to Louisiana Open Meetings Law. The agenda for today's meeting fails to conform to the Louisiana Open Meetings Law. Next comment is from Virginia Richard, not a paid representative. The decimation of the tree canopy that came with colonialism has been disastrous for our area. For the good of our people and the entire planet, we need to reforest it with native trees immediately. Thank you. The final comment is from Charlotte Clark, not a paid representative. As a resident of New Orleans and leader of environmentally focused Common Ground Relief, I comment in unequivocal support of Resolution R21-17. Trees are of great importance to our city, both mitigating the threats of stormwater, flooding, and subsidence, and improving quality of life for residents of New Orleans. Trees provide abundant short and long-term benefits to our community. Investing and strategically supporting our urban canopy is an effective use of city funds that will benefit residents immensely for many years to come. That's all the public comment.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I couldn't have said it better myself. And I just really want to say, you know, I personally got to start working with Susanna before I came back into office, right when you started your nonprofit, and to work in Algiers with you and to plant over 800 trees, y'all, within a short amount of time, within 5 years. It's transformed the neighborhood. And I really just want to see that happen all over the city. And I know that we can do it with everyone's support. Y'all are truly tremendous women that are on here. And I just want to thank you for your constant commitment to our city and to our people. Oh, great. Councilmember Brossette is here and Councilmember Nguyen. Can we have a motion to approve this resolution and send it to the full council?
Sure.
Move to adopt.
Move to adopt by
Second.
Councilmember Brossette, seconded by Councilmember Nguyen. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So we will now move this to the full council. Again, ladies, thank you for all of your dedication. You truly are making a difference in the lives of the people of the city. So with that, I see no other matters. I would like to have it. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So
Thank you,
moved.
everybody, so much. We really appreciate you.
You're welcome. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Moved by Councilmember Nguyen,
Second.
second by Councilmember Brossette. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank y'all so much. Appreciate you.